Hi, this is FIFO, and today I'll be talking about asset issuance in the Stellar network. What are custom assets? Before we start, it's important to distinguish that here we won't be talking about the native asset. A native asset would be the cryptocurrency, the asset that is born with the network. One example would be Ether for the Ethereum network, which is an equivalent to the lumens for the Stellar network. These are generally used to pay for the fees to move funds around, but they are born with the network. What we're talking about here are custom assets. And the custom assets, they are created afterward by accounts, which could be controlled by a user like you and me, or an issuing entity, and this could be of any type, like a stablecoin, a CBDC, a security, an investment token, you name it. Now to smart contracts versus native functionalities. You might have heard of smart contracts. They were popularized by the Ethereum network and had been adopted by several other networks like Solana, Polygon, Optimism, and these are generally just some application that you implement and deploy to be run on-chain. So these applications, they run within the network. That's why they are called decentralized applications. And this process takes some time and some effort to be built. You have to think and plan ahead of time all of the mechanisms that you want to implement. You need to code that into your contract, deploy on the network, and this can take a lot of time and effort. What we'll be focusing here is a different option. Well, Stellar has a platform for smart contracts. It's being built right now. It's called Soroban, and this is scheduled to be released this year in 2023. But what we'll be focusing here are not smart contracts, are native functionalities. So the native functionalities, when we're talking about Stellar, these are called the Stellar Classic. These are a set of operations that come ready to be used out of the box. All you need to do is just to combine them in different ways within your transaction, and this will allow you to issue your own asset, personalize its profile, and distribute to the ecosystem. The issuing account. The issuing account in the Stellar network is an account like any other. Technically, it starts the same way, but once I issue an asset, we call it the issuing account because of its relationship to the asset. Once I issue the asset, it becomes forever linked to the asset as the account that controls it. It controls the asset, it controls the control mechanisms, the profile of the asset, who has access to it, how it behaves, how it is distributed, and it's the only account that can mint and burn units of that asset. And when we think about an asset in the Stellar network, we always refer to it as the asset issued by this account. So if I think about my asset, FIFO coin, I'm not calling FIFO coin, I'm calling FIFO coin issued by FIFO's account. Alright FIFO, and how can I manage the supply of my asset? Well, that's pretty simple. You can think of the issuing account as the forge, the money printer. Technically, it can never hold any balance of an asset it controls. So that's important because in Stellar you have several operations you could use to move funds around, and these operations could be used to manage the supply. That's because whenever you send some amount of the asset from the issuing account to any other place, these units are being generated. It's new circulating supply. You are minting units. And whenever the units are sent back to the issuing account, these are being burned. They're being removed from circulation. So with that in mind, the easiest way we could do to manage the supply is by using some payments operation. So here on top we have the issuing account, and down below we have other accounts. Whenever we perform a payment from the issuing account to any other accounts, that's new circulating supply that we're adding. We are minting new units, and whenever we send some units back to the issuing account, we are burning them and removing from circulation. You could combine different operations and build a very customized design for your solution, but there's a design pattern that's widely adopted by the ecosystem, and that is a design pattern called issuing distribution pair. So in the issuing distribution pair, the issuing entity actually controls two accounts instead of one. So we have here on top the issuing account, but down below we also have the distribution account. So whenever the issuing entity is minting new units, it mints directly to the distribution account. And whenever the issuing entity wants to burn some units, it burns from the distribution account. This way, you isolate the supply management from the rest of the ecosystem, and you have autonomy to control your own supply. And after you manage your supply and you're ready to distribute your tokens, it's the distribution account that is responsible to distribute the token into the ecosystem. Permissioning and access control. A very important aspect of the Stellar network is that by default, whenever you create an asset without any sort of customization, it is what we call a non-permissioned asset. A non-permissioned asset could be used by anyone without any sort of control. So any account could create a trust line and start sending and receiving units, transacting around, trading the asset, and that does not fit all of the use cases. So if you need to add a layer of control, you could enable a set of control mechanisms called authorization flags. We'll dive deeper into those in a separate video, but in a summary, the authorization flags are a set of flags that alters the behavior of the token, and you could combine those in different ways to create a very personalized profile to your token, and these can define how the token behaves and who has access to this token. So at each flag that we enable, we are moving the token from a non-permissioned side of the spectrum to a permissioned side of the spectrum at each flag that we are enabling. And this way you can create a unique profile to your asset according to your use case and your requirements as an asset issuer. These were all the topics we had for today. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions or any topics to suggest, just leave in the comments and I see you next time.